This week from the global lane, terror strikes New York City again. What's the first step in combating terror? Dale Hurd travels to England to show us how political correctness stifles government's ability to fight back. Also, where in the world Africa? How tires and shoes are changing lives in Rwanda. On the home front, only 1 out of 5 people in New Hampshire attend church services weekly. How one ministry is bringing biblical values to misinformed millennials in the Granite State. Christmas on campus. A growing number of American colleges are saying bah humbug to celebrating Christ. And you better not wear a Make America Great Again hat at one university. Campus Reform's Hannah Sherlocker will set it straight. And I'll drive it home on Trump, Judge Roy Moore, and the new era of sexual poison politics in America. And it's all right here, right now, from the global lane. 1 month after a terrorist murdered 8 people on a bike path in New York City, terror struck again in the Big Apple. This time, a Bangladeshi immigrant. His name, Ayed Ullah. He failed in his attempt to unleash death and destruction in New York City, in the subway system. Fortunately, his explosive vest detonated prematurely before people could be blown to bits during rush hour. Ullah and 4 other people were injured. The terrorist was taken into custody. Officials believe he was inspired by recent Islamic State Christmas attacks. How can America prevent future terror attacks? Dale Hurd reports that efforts must begin by first acknowledging the source of the terror, who is committing it, and why. He brings us this story about how political correctness has paralyzed the British government, leading to a failure to respond aggressively in the United Kingdom.
The British Parliament went into emergency session, urging Prime Minister Theresa May to cancel President Trump's planned visit to Britain next year. One MP even said the American president should be arrested if he sets foot on British soil. You might have thought Donald Trump ordered the sinking of a British battleship or insulted the Queen. What Trump did was retweet videos of alleged Muslim violence from a British fringe anti-Islamization group that the British establishment detests. While many considered the president's tweets a bad idea, especially since the factualness of one of the videos has been disputed, the whole episode showed again that the British establishment is obsessed with so-called hate speech, even more, some say, than the threat of terrorism. One response to Muslim radicalism in Britain has been to attack the critics, as if criticism of the problem is as bad or worse than the problem itself. 3,400 Britons were arrested last year for online hate speech. That usually means people who criticize Islam. Almost 10 times the number arrested for terrorism-related offenses, while British police have had to let suspects of other crimes go because of cutbacks. At the root of it all, say officials we interviewed, is the belief that criticism of Islam is a terrible thing. It's called racism, even though Islam is not a race.
Racism is the kind of 21st century equivalent of being accused of witchcraft in the 17th century. You're guilty until you're proved innocent. And of course, the process of proving innocent may well destroy you anyway.
Gerard Batten is a member of the European Parliament for UKIP, the UK Independence Party.
But you see, our political establishment is terrified of being called racist or Islamophobe because it's one of the worst things you can be accused of. Because once you've been labelled that and it sticks, that's the end of your career. You're not going anywhere.
The same British government that has devoted more money and manpower to stamp out criticism of Islam online dragged its feet when investigating a huge rape gang scandal involving mostly Pakistani heritage men who preyed on as many as 1 million mostly white English girls. The same government continues to allow the existence of Sharia courts and has hosted radical Islamic events on government property. We filmed this Palestine conference, which included known anti-Semites and terrorism supporters, at the government-owned QE2 Center, the same venue where a Christian conference on traditional marriage was banned. The other Trump tweet that miffed British leaders was when he told the Prime Minister she should care more about the terrorist threat facing her own nation. British police and MI5 are said to be monitoring 20,000 potential terrorists. There have been 5 terror attacks in 2017 alone that have killed more than 30 and injured hundreds.
Every day I fear another terrorist attack.
Raheem Kassam is Breitbart London editor-in-chief and author of No-Go Zones.
This is the new normal for us. Every day I wake up, check my phone and see where the latest terror attack has been. And yet we're still pulling this pillow over our head saying, la, 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 we can't hear you, we can't figure it out.
I thought in Manchester, when you have a bomb with children, that would really shock people. And it did shock people, but again, there is a fear of addressing what may lie behind it.
The British government seems almost obsessed with what it calls social cohesion. Think of it as government-enforced social harmony, backed up by the police. It's an attempt to keep a lid on boiling social tensions. But the social tensions are still there. And that means when it comes to criticism of Islam, or even the superiority of British values, free speech in Britain is gone.
If anybody was to talk about the superiority of British values over other people's values, they'd probably find themselves arrested and on a charge of racism or Islamophobia. And I'm not kidding. You have to be very careful what you say in Britain today.
Something we were all reminded of when the American president sent those tweets. Dale Hurd, CBN News, London.
When you think of the African country Rwanda, you may likely think of the genocide committed by Hutus against the Tutsis. Today, more than 2 decades later, efforts are still underway in that country to combat prejudice and bring an end to poverty. In 2011, 3 American college students began a project to bring changes to Rwandan society through creative entrepreneurship. Joining us now is Chris Way. We have heard of some college entrepreneurs who left college and started big companies. You've partnered to start an organization that is changing lives in Rwanda. Tell us, what is Atinga Collective?
So the Atinga Collective, or the Atanga Project, is really a social business, but obviously a business model at its core that is meant to lift the beneficiaries that we work with out of poverty and benefit them more than just their normal daily wages. They are shoemakers, artisan shoemakers that make tire sandals in Rwanda. Tire sandals have been a common way to get affordable footwear for decades, but there has not been any access to Western markets, so we've been able to facilitate that with the Atinga Project.
There are great needs throughout Africa, so why Rwanda?
I studied in Rwanda as a Houghton College student, a Christian liberal arts school here in Western New York. In 2011, I was there, and I focused in international development. I returned with a pair of the Atinga tire sandals. We named them Atingas because that denotes dignity, honor, and humility. That's a West African term. And, primarily, I came back with these local handcrafted tire sandals and wore them on my own college campus, right alongside other college students who were more into the one-for-one movement and the Tom Shoes movement. But I had to contest with them, as many academics and other people in the NGO and international development industry were really criticizing that. Because if you give away shoes to people in other countries, that puts local shoemakers and other people out of business. That actually hurts their economy more than helps them. So that's how we started.
Well, so you've been doing this now for about 6 years. What difference have you made, Chris?
Well, it's been really awesome to see the impact over, we've been researching it for a total of about 6 years, you're right. But we've been actively in business and almost 4 years here, selling locally in the Western New York market and in the States, and even a few in the UK. It's a very small scale project, but it has had a lot of impact. We've been able to, if you look at our annual report, especially 2015, and then this one coming out this year in 2017, covering the past 3 or 4 years, we've had almost over, it was $6,000 of impact spread across about 5 different families. That's only the D for D. We call that a dividend for development. And that's a no strings attached, unconditional dividend, basically. That's simply given back and paid back to the artisans for their participation, and they use that to meet any needs that they determine is best for them. Sometimes they reinvest that into their own businesses and sell a lot more of their footwear locally in the market, grow their business, which is fantastic. It has repercussions that are almost immeasurable. But then you have just simple needs that are being met, food and nutrition. In our main video on our website and on YouTube, we cover that. We make sure we get that out there and have the artisans actually just give you a direct testimony about that. And this is all in addition to the fair wage that we pay, which is above market prices and above market wages there. That's how we purchase. They're basically our supplier, is how it works out. So,
you went to a Christian college, so what message are you trying to convey to people through this effort?
Well, the primary thing here is that, I learned in intercultural studies and in missions work even, whether it's business as missions or anything that we do for other people, in the church, outside of the church, in our own local community, we need to learn to walk a mile in the shoes of the people we want to help. That's the only way to uphold dignity of other people. And that's exactly what this project is all about. It's, again, Atinga means dignity, honor, and humility. And it's a Ghanaian word, and it refers to even the peasants, the working class people with dignity. That's something that is really in our consumeristic culture and even in the church culture, sadly, we're not always walking in the shoes of the people that we want to help. We have to learn from them. We have to listen to them. We have to walk a mile in their shoes. We have to listen to them. And that's exactly what Jesus asked us to do for the least of these. And I'll just add, in 2014, when I did a lot of the research, the bulk of the research for the project, and I met with these artisans in person, we sat down with my co-founder, John, in Rwanda, and they sat there before us, and they couldn't understand, they couldn't fathom, why have you sought us out? Why have you sought to work with us and partner with us, to put us on a platform in your own country? And they said to us, we feel forgotten. We feel like outcasts. At that moment, that was one of probably the high point in terms of an emotional point in our project, because that affirmed to me that those for me were verbatim the words of Christ, and that's exactly kind of the populations that we need to be sensitive to in our day and age, I believe.
Okay, Chris Way, making a great difference in Rwanda. We thank you for being with us. God bless you and your efforts.
Thanks so much, Gary.
Christmas is the perfect time for inviting people to attend church services. In the state of New Hampshire, only about 20% of the people attend church weekly. That compares to a rate of 40% nationally. Many millennials are misguided, perhaps misinformed over some controversial cultural topics. One ministry is helping to educate New Hampshire high schoolers about biblical values, and they're leading them to Christ. Joining us now is Kaylin Tuttle. She's youth pastor of Grace Capital Church in Pembroke, New Hampshire, and she and her husband Phil are founders of the One Nation Conference. Kaylin, thanks so much for joining us. So what's the purpose of the One Nation Conference, and why did it get started?
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, my husband and I were on a mission trip to Russia, and God just dropped this phrase in our hearts, one nation under God. And he just began to speak to us about how this was not just a phrase, but a promise for our nation. And he started to speak to us about how if we want to win a nation, we have to start winning campuses, because it's on campuses that the hearts and minds of young people are formed. And so we started really going after high schoolers, middle schoolers, and university students in the state of New Hampshire. And our conference, One Nation Conference, is really a time where all those campus ministries can come together to get equipped, to get empowered, and to really be challenged to win their campuses for Christ.
Well, tell me, how specifically are you focusing on high schoolers?
High schoolers is our biggest ministry right now. It's definitely, I think we're on about 26 high school campuses right now. So it's pretty much our main focus.
Well, what specifically are you doing to reach them?
Yeah, so basically we go into schools and we set up student-led clubs. So we don't want to just go in and preach to students. We really want to equip students to be preaching to their peers. So what we do is we equip students to preach the gospel, to lead Bible studies on their campuses, and that they would be the ones that are going in and doing the work of the ministry.
And building relationships, I'm assuming.
Exactly, yeah. So they're not just clubs where all the Christians can gather, but we're really encouraging them and challenging them to win the lost, to, they're the ones that have friends on campus. They're there every single day when we just come in once a week and support and encourage them. But they're really the ones that are on campus every day. They know the students, they know the teachers, and they're really the best ones to be able to win the lost.
And what kind of reaction have you received?
Surprisingly, many people think that that we're not allowed to preach the gospel on public school campuses because of separation of church and state. But what many people don't realize is that as a club, as a student-led club, we have as many rights as any other club So, for example, if a chess club wanted to come in and meet every week and bring in guest speakers, they would be able to do that. And so, as a Christian club, we have the same exact rights as anybody else. And when it's our heart and mission to be a blessing to the school, instead of just coming in with our agenda and forcing our opinions, we really seek to be a blessing to the school. And so they actually welcome us in and love that we're there.
And what are you doing for this Christmas season?
For this Christmas, we're basically allowing our students to really ask the question in this Christmas season, how can we reach our school? So some of our students are, actually one of our middle schools is putting together an entire breakfast for all the teachers in the school. So they're just going to put a big spread for all the teachers just to say, we love you, thank you so much for everything that you do for us.
So tell us about the mission trip that you have planned.
Yeah, so we're basically, we're going to Ireland this summer. We're going to be doing a mission trip there. And my husband and I, our background is in soccer. So we're going to be putting on soccer camps for kids and taking a team of 15 female athletes, high-level soccer players who we're going to compete in games and matches and really just use the sport of soccer to minister the gospel.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. Ireland, what a great place. And what are you urging Christians to do during this Christmas season? It's a special time. I'm sure there's some things we can do.
Yeah, I think we're just urging Christians to not just stay in their churches and in their Christian bubbles. We really feel like God is leading us to get out into our communities, to get out into our cities and into the spheres that He's given us. We know that as youth pastors for so long, it was easy for us to just stay in the church and wait for everybody to come in. But we really believe that now's the time to go where the people are, to get out, to serve, to be Jesus to people in our communities, whether it's in the schools or in the workplaces or on the streets or whatever it may be. This Christmas season is such a good time to be able to get out and to serve the people of our cities.
A very simple concept, be the church, not just go to church. So,
Exactly.
Kaylin Tuttle, thank you for joining us today, and may God bless your efforts.
Thank you so much.
'Tis the season for peace on earth and goodwill toward men, but maybe not on one American college campus. Students at Chicago's Loyola University are complaining that the school is emphasizing Christmas and not other religious holidays, like the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Fitr. Let me point out, Loyola is a Catholic university. Most Catholics celebrate Christmas, even on college campuses. So here to set us straight is Campus Reform's Hannah Sherlocker. Hannah, good to see you again. So tell us about this. What is happening this Christmas at Loyola University?
So each year, the Leadership Institute's Campus Reform reports on the efforts colleges and universities across the nation take to remove Christmas from college campuses. It's not only Loyola. We're seeing this at the University of Tennessee, where they issued a warning to ensure your holiday party isn't really a Christmas party in disguise. And then we see other universities ban nativity scenes and ban images of the crucifixion. So this is all in the name of tolerance and inclusivity, but in reality, it's just another attempt to marginalize Christian students.
Well, aren't the majority of the students at Loyola, aren't they the majority Catholic?
They are, and 92% of Americans in general are Christians or Catholics who celebrate Christmas, who have reported to celebrate Christmas. And this nation was founded on not only individual liberties, but religious freedom. So to say that this is in the name of sensitivity is ridiculous. I think it's a lot less about sensitivity and more about censorship. Trying to expunge the mention of Christmas from college campuses is really an assault on Christians, and it's another attempt to force secular ideology onto students.
Hannah, are we seeing an increase in this intolerance at Christmas time about Christmas celebrations on college campuses? How does this compare to last year?
So it's only getting worse. We're seeing a major increase in the number of college campuses that are trying to remove Christmas words, remove Christmas themes. We're seeing The word, holiday, even at Texas Women's University, saying holiday party is apparently now offensive, and instead their students are told to call parties end of semester parties. So it's not even Christmas now. Even saying holiday is offensive, and it's just ridiculous. Students are learning that religious freedom is not an important American value. Religious freedom not only includes our ability to pray at home or go to church on Sunday. It's our ability to meet with other people who share our beliefs. We can meet with them and reinforce our beliefs without having to hide our faith in public. So, this telling students that any visual representation of their faith or their holiday is offensive is just absolutely ridiculous. And students are going to take this ideology with them off campus. And the consequences, not only students suffer, but American society suffers when our deeply held American values are neglected for the sake of political correctness.
Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about Make America Great Again, how that kind of response that we're getting on campus to that. But first, just briefly, I heard about some more craziness on campus. Care Bears at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. Tell me about that.
So students are given Care Bears to cope with stress. We see this across the nation on college campuses. Students are given cry-ins where they can cry and mourn the loss of Hillary Clinton. They're given puppies to pet. Just the other day, we reported on students being able to pet llamas. They brought llamas into school to help students cope with stress. And then, of course, with the MAGA hats, students walked into an on-campus student-run coffee shop, and they were wearing Make America Great Again hats, and they were told to leave because it violates the safe space policy. So this really speaks to the bigger theme of coddling on college campuses that we see. Students cannot get this type of special treatment in the real world. When they're stressed, they have to learn how to deal with it. In the real world, they're going to have to work with, interact, and socialize with people who hold diverse beliefs. And that includes Trump supporters. And the best way to teach them is to burst their safe space bubbles and teach them how to cope with stress and interact with people of various beliefs.
We've got to kiss those boo-boos, Hannah. So let me ask you another thing about those college Republicans that were at Fordham University, that coffee shop, because they were making Make America Great Again hats. Tell us a little more about that.
So these students walked into the shop and they were giving the shop business just like any other student on campus. And the owner came over and told them, you have 5 minutes to get out. You're violating our safe space policy. And, the student, he's a tough New Yorker. He was like, I'm sorry, no, I'm giving you business. I have a right to be here. And, the students who were forcing the Make America Great Again students to leave, they truly believed that they had the right, that it was okay to kick students off based on their beliefs, because this is the environment that they learn from professors and administrators who completely allow discrimination against conservative students. And I find it ironic that this happened the same week that the Supreme Court is hearing the case against the cake bakers who refused to bake a same-sex wedding cake based on religious convictions. So there's a lot of hypocrisy here. The left is calling that a case of discrimination, but it's very hypocritical that it only applies to conservative or Republicans, and that same mindset we're seeing on campus with this student campus cafe.
Well, maybe these conservative students should start filing some lawsuits. That might take care of it. It's okay. Hannah Sherlocker of Campus Reform, thank you so much for setting us straight today. You have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. You too. Merry Christmas.
Now that Judge Roy Moore has lost his Senate bid in that historic special election in Alabama. And now the Democrats overwhelmingly lost an impeachment vote against Donald Trump on obstruction of justice charges. Leftist Democrats are shifting tactics. Now they're gunning for President Trump on sexual misconduct charges. It started in Hollywood, allegations against the conduct of Harvey Weinstein. And then it moved eastward to Alabama, where allegations surfaced accusing Roy Moore of sexual misconduct with a 14-year-old girl nearly 40 years ago. Then it moved on to Capitol Hill, resulting in the resignations of Al Franken and John Conyers. Folks, we've now entered a new era, one of sexually charged poison politics. Get ready for a long ride, because this has been a long time in coming. It first came to the forefront when Bill Clinton was impeached for lying under oath about his sexual relationship with Monica Lewinsky. 25 years later, Democrats are now committed to bringing a new morality to America. Do they sincerely want a more godly nation, or is this just for political gain? I think they've learned they can win elections by bringing up allegations of sexual misconduct that occurred decades ago. 3 women have come forward again, accusing Donald Trump of sexual misconduct. All incidents allegedly took place years ago, before he was president. More than 100 Democrats in the House wrote a letter saying they can't ignore the multitude of women making accusations against Trump. And 5 U.S. senators, all Democrats, including Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, have called on the president to resign.
President Trump should resign. These allegations are credible. They are numerous.
But the president is unlikely to resign. He says these are old, false allegations that were brought up during the presidential campaign. American voters elected Trump despite those accusations. But, Mr. President, get ready. Your lawyers must be ready because they're coming to get you. This will be the basis of new articles of impeachment that will likely come after Democrats possibly regain the House of Representatives next fall. Mr. Trump's political opponents claim that he should be treated the same as President Clinton. There's no difference, but there is. Remember, Clinton was accused of sexual misconduct while serving as president. He's also been accused of rape. Yes, he was impeached, but because he lied under oath to a federal grand jury, not for sexual misconduct with an intern, the Senate failed to force him from office. I can't help but wonder what will happen to Bill Clinton now in this new era of sexual politics. Will allegations against him continue to be ignored because he's not in office now and because he's a likable guy? In the immediate future, we can expect Democrats to pressure Republican committee chairs to conduct ethics investigations against President Trump. And if Robert Mueller's investigation fails to uncover collusion between the president and the Russians, and it likely will fail to uncover that, then a sexual misconduct investigation will proceed full force. Count on it. Democrats and establishment Republicans want this president out. Yes, we need a new morality in America and Washington, but a real sincere effort to embrace righteousness, not for the sake of political gain or advantage, but because we truly want a better, more godly nation. But folks, we must be careful. As we fight to drain the snakes and alligators from the swamp, we must not evict the turtles, toads, and tadpoles. Yes, there are some righteous people in Washington, and this atmosphere of poison politics is forcing even many of them to leave. Christians, how should we respond to all this? Judge Moore likely lost his race because the evangelical vote in Alabama was down 3%. Many evangelical Christians simply stayed home. We need to continue to be light in our society, and whether Democrat or Republican, we must insist on godliness and righteousness from our leaders. Proverbs 21:21 says, "Whoever pursues righteousness and love finds life, prosperity, and honor." So keep praying and fighting for righteousness and love, and that prosperity and honor will prevail in America. Well, that's it this week from the Global Lane. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, and Twitter. And until next time, be blessed.